Welcome to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast. This is the very first edition of this podcast. So the whole idea of this podcast is to get people familiar with solar and energy storage, talk about things like the National Electric Code and what's going on in the world, and sunlight, putting it into semiconductors and bottling it up with energy storage. So to start off here, let's just talk a little bit about the National Electrical Code. The National Electrical Code is something that comes out every 3 years. So we're on a cycle 2014, 2017, 2020, 2023, so on and so forth. And with the National Electrical Code, we have the rules that are enforced for solar in many places in the world, especially North America. But it's surprising, I'm actually going to Asia to teach a class in the Philippines in a few hours, and we're going to talk about all the same things in the National Electrical Code over there. So some of the things that are going on with us is we're going to talk about solar photovoltaic systems, which is Article 690 of the National Electrical Code. And then if we want to talk about energy storage, which this podcast is also about, we talk about Article 706. But there's a lot of other things in the National Electrical Code that we can talk about, such as Article 100, where we have lots of definitions, including the definition of PV, photovoltaic, which is photo, light, and voltaic is voltage. So we're taking light, we're turning it into voltage through a semiconductor. Then we have Article 110, Article 110, requirements for electrical installations. And what do we look up there? Things like how deep we're going to bury a conduit, if it's going under a driveway or going under a road or just going through the dirt. And we'll also look up things in Article 110, like how far we need to keep our equipment away from things, such as different pieces of equipment. Overcurrent protection is covered in Article 240, but it's also covered in other places of the code, such as Article 690, photovoltaic systems. Article 250 is a big one. That's grounding and bonding, which is also covered in Article 690, photovoltaic systems, and in other places throughout the code. Article 310 is a big one for wire sizing. In fact, not just 310 itself, but we go 310.15b, and then we go on with B16, B17, B2A, and so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of tables there. Those are probably the most widely used pages in the National Electrical Code, and those pages are tables for sizing wires, and we'll go over that in a different podcast. Wire sizing is kind of complicated. Then we can look at NEC Articles 320 through 362, and those are articles about different wiring methods. And the big wiring method that's often used in this industry, solar and energy storage, is electrical metallic tubing. It's cheap, it's safe, and we use it a lot. Article 480 is storage batteries, and in the 2014 National Electric Code, that's where we spent a lot of time looking up our lead acid battery questions. And now with modern batteries and the new article in 2017 National Electric Code, Article 706, energy storage systems, we are looking less and less at Article 480. In fact, in Article 690, it says when you're going to do energy storage to look to Article 706. It doesn't say go to 480. 480 is old-fashioned kind of lead acid, and there's talk of even getting rid of 480, Article 480. And as I mentioned, Article 690 is solar photovoltaic systems. Then there's Article 691, which is also new in the 2017 National Electric Code, and that is large-scale photovoltaic electric power production facility. And that's for big systems that are 5 megawatts and over AC output on the ground under special conditions. So we're not going to just have anybody doing these things. These are pretty much utility scale PV systems, and they are not even using the National Electrical Code for all of these systems. A lot of times they even use something called the National Electrical Safety Code for some of these big systems. And then, going in order, Article 705, interconnected electric power production sources. This is a big one, used to be covered by Article 690, and this is for doing interconnections. So if you're going to be hooking up your PV system to the grid, you want to go look in Article 705. To be more specific, we spend a lot of time in 705.12 looking for how we're going to do supply side connections and load side connections. And what comes after 705? 706, and we talked about that before. Another thing that this podcast is about, energy storage systems, new one, 2017 National Electrical Code. Energy storage systems is in there. It's a big one. And then we also have a new one for the 2017 National Electrical Code, Article 710, standalone systems. And pretty much this was taken out of Article 690 in the 2017 National Electrical Code. And so it is new in 2017, Article 710, standalone systems, standalone, 710. And then we have Article 712, another new one in the 2017 code, and that is direct current microgrids, Article 712. For alternating current microgrids, we use Article 705, interconnected electric power production sources. We're getting towards the end of the book now, and so towards the end of the NEC is Chapter 9, tables. And so in these tables, we can use Table 1, Table 4, and Table 5 for figuring out how many wires fit in a pipe and a piece of conduit. And so we know the size of the wire that's going to go into the conduit, and it's pretty much how many circles fit in a circle. It's kind of interesting. And then we have Chapter 9, Table 8, conductor properties. That's a good one. Lots of interesting things about wires. We can translate for the American wire sizing versus the rest of the world wire sizing, where they use square millimeters instead of AWG, which means American wire gauge. And for conductor properties, we also can do calculations for voltage drop. So that sounds like a fun place to spend some time. And so that was just a quick overview of the National Electrical Code. So my idea for this podcast is that I spend a lot of time driving around and I need to be productive all the time. I don't like not being productive. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I thought it would be just a good idea to have a solar podcast out there. I also teach a lot of solar classes. I teach classes at the big conferences in all different places around the world. I teach at Solar Power International. I teach at Intersolar in different countries, United States and India, Dubai. And I'm on the Intersolar jury over there in Germany. And so I keep pretty active. I've written some books on solar. I wrote Solar Photovoltaic Basics, first edition and second edition, Solar PV Engineering and Installation, working on the second edition for that one right now, Solar PV Technical Sales. And I also wrote Solar Photovoltaic Systems and the National Electrical Code with my friend Bill Brooks. And I just think it's a good idea to be more productive and to put some things out there for people that are driving down the road. So anyway, this is just the first one, and come back for more. We're going to have a lot of fun here. That's going to be the idea, fun learning. We're going to talk about all kinds of good things. So come back and stop by whenever you can. And thanks for listening to Sean White's Solar and Energy Storage Podcast.